Good morning. I'm going to be replacing the water pump on my 540. Same procedure for a 740. You can see the antifreeze there. The bearing's loose. Water's coming out. Antifreeze is coming out. Just to note, this is actually going to be the third time I've replaced it. The water pump went bad, and I bought one at my local Napa. Lasted about 2 months. Went bad. Took it back. Got another one. Brand new, not remanufactured, lasted for about a year. I don't drive the car much, has about 8,000 miles on it, and it's bad again. BMWs is not that much more expensive if you order through the internet where I live. It's outside Washington, D.C. For some stupid reason, if you walk in and get it, it's a whole lot more. So I got a BMW one this time because I don't feel like doing it again. So anyway, it's not that hard of a job. You know, it just takes a little bit of time, and I'm going to go through everything about how you do it. First thing we got to do is, of course, remove all the air filter and intake pipe. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on to the next step. So my air intake's all out of the way. Next thing you got to do is remove your vent screw. Don't lose it. And then these little tabs here just push in, and this piece pulls out, and your bottle will become loose. There's a hose right on the other side that you got to pop off that goes to the other side of the radiator. And down here there's one hose that goes into your reservoir, and there's actually 3 wires I take loose at this point. One's on your heater hose for your temperature, one's for your low reservoir, and it's kind of difficult to see, but there's one down there for your temperature sensor for your fan. And then you remove the bottle, and that will give you access to more. So next you want to remove your radiator hoses. You just pop these little pins out, and sometimes you got to give it a little pry right in there, but be careful, everything's plastic. If you got old hoses, it's a good time to change them, put new ones on. They're not terribly expensive. If you have the water-cooled alternator like I do, there's one down here on your alternator too. You got to take loose. It's not too hard to get to. And then one goes to your water pump and one goes to your lower radiator. Careful you don't lose these clips. I've lost them before, and you cannot just get the clips. That's why when I replace the hoses, I save the old clips, because without it, the hose will just pop off. Next thing you got to do is take the fan clutch loose. You can see mine turning. It does have left-handed threads, so it seems like you're tightening it. They make a special tool to hold the pulley. Mine's a fairly new clutch, so I just put a wrench on there and take a hammer and knock it, and usually it comes loose. You can also use a strap wrench on the pulley. The only thing is you have to be careful because it is a plastic pulley. But yeah, the next thing you gotta do is take the fan clutch off. Next thing you do is take the fan shroud off. There's actually a little clip that's been missing on mine. It hasn't affected it. And you take one out on each side here, one on the other side, and it just lifts up, snaps in the little clips down there. You'll see how it goes once you take it out. Fairly simple. So here we're starting to get somewhere. You don't have to take the radiator out. If you want to, if you want the extra room, you can, but it's not necessary. The reason I do it in the procedure, you see the belt's still on there. You see your belt tensioner is up in here, and it's a lot easier to get to than trying to climb underneath the car. The other thing I like to point out is the hose here going to your reservoir clips up down underneath the bottom of the water pump, and you pretty much have to go this far on the car to replace that hose. It's a good idea to just replace it when you do your water pump. It's like 25 bucks for the insurance of not having to go this far to reach this stupid hose. Anyway, I'm going to take the belt loose, I'm going to take the hose off, and we'll move on from there. So the belt's off. There's 2 screws in the holding the tensioner on there. That tensioner actually has to be removed. So you take 2 screws out, and then you pop the front cover off of this cap, and there's another screw inside there. I believe it's Torx that you have to take out that's bolted into the block. I also have to take the smog pollution control thing pipe off. There's 2 screws right in the top of it. They're difficult to see, and they're Allen screws. Now mine have been changed, and one of mine's actually got like a number 10 bolt in it. And you just unhook your pollution control hose, your vacuum from your car. And you also need to take your temperature sensor off here and your sensor out here. You don't have to worry about these plugs too much. They'll only go in one place, so it's difficult to really get them mixed up, which makes it nice. But we're going to remove all that stuff and we'll go to the next step. So I removed my pulley. I took the tube out. As you can see, the flanges are here, and that sticks in. It's just got rubber O-rings that go into the block itself. When you take this out, just be careful to pull on both ends of it and wiggle it a little bit. You don't want to bend it or it'll be terrible to get back in. There's one screw in the middle that goes to the water pump. We're actually down to the water pump now. Next thing is we've got to remove the bolts. The reason I take the pulley out is there's a bolt underneath the crank here. I don't know if you can see it. That you can actually get with a number 10 wrench without taking the crank off. But if you don't remove this pulley, you can't do that. So I'm going to remove all the bolts around the water pump, and it should be pretty free to come out. So I got all my bolts out. Here they are. There's 4 short, 2 long. The pulley can come off before or after. It doesn't matter. There's one long one behind the pulley. Of course, you have to change the pulley to the new pump. But you can get to them all with the pulley on there. The other thing is there's 2 tubes that go in the back, and you kind of just got to wiggle it off of there. If the tubes come out of the back, it's not the end of the world. They just go to a crossover manifold in the back that goes to your heads. And mine come right off. They just have rubber O-rings on there. And they just seal in there. Now, if they slip out, you know, like I say, you a little bit of patience, you can get them back in if they slip out the other end. They tell you not to put any oil or anything on them like that because it deteriorates the rubber if you're trying to put them back in and they're tight. But I have put Vaseline on them. I've had them slip out the other end and put a little bit of Vaseline on it to help them go back in. But yeah, the water pump's out, just lifts right out. So there it is, all cleaned up. Of course you want to get it real nice and clean. Clean off the end of your pipes too. I haven't done that yet. There's your new water pump and the old one. You have to change the pulley over. The other thing is your thermostat housing. If you had any sort of problems, now would be the time to change it. But there's just 4 bolts, simply bolts on right here. And then there's one temperature sensor, I believe, that screws in the top. So you transfer all this stuff over to the new pump. One other thing, if you order from BMW, don't ask me why, but you have to order the gasket separately. Why somebody put a water pump on and not need a gasket, I have no idea. But just so you don't forget it and get out there and go, oh God, I need a gasket. Anyway, I'm going to change everything over and we'll see what we got. So just figured I'd show you thermostat housing. It does have a rubber O-ring in it. Unless your O-ring's messed up, it can be reused. And this thing will only go on there one way. It's the only way the bolt holes will line up. So as you see, there's a little dome in the top, so you don't have to worry. If you're like me, you take things apart and then you sit back and look at it and say, okay, how did that go? Was it this way or this way? But anyway, it's pretty straightforward. It will only go in one way. Okay, so everything's changed over. I'm going to put the pulley on after I mount the water pump, thermostat, temperature sensor. The last thing you got to do is you got to get there's little rubber O-rings that I talked about before in here. And I just take a pick and get at them and lift them out of there. And then they got to be put back in here. Just a little bit of careful, don't mess them up. If you mess them up, you just got to buy new ones. Or if you like, just buy new ones to begin with. So I used a little bit of the Permatex high-tack gasket sealer on there. It's not really required, but it helps hold the gasket in place while I'm fooling with it. And a little bit extra insurance. And when you stick it back on here, you're just going to try to wiggle it on the two pipes. It should slide on there relatively easy. But you just work it around a little bit, get it on those pipes, and should be able to line up the screws and start getting them in. So it's all bolted in place. As far as torque goes on these, the torque rating is real low. I've heard so many different things. Generally, I use an impact and I run them until they're close to tight with the impact, and then I use a ratchet and I just tighten them up so they're tight. The only thing you got to remember is that everything's aluminum, so you can't over tighten it. And next thing you want to do, you see I put my hose on down here. I can get to everything real easy, so when you put it back together in order where things are easy to get to. So we'll go in those next steps. So everything's pretty much back in there. I tell you, it's easier to hook up the radiator hoses. There's my crossover tube for my pollution. Belts on. All my little wires are plugged in before you put the fan clutch and the fan shroud on there. So all I got left, put the fan clutch, the fan shroud, a water bottle, plug it back in, and then we can put some antifreeze in it and bleed the system. Now bleed the system. It holds 3 gallons of antifreeze water. I usually put a gallon in it, and I add a gallon of water, try to keep it 50-50. As you can see there, air bubbling out. I fill it, let it settle, fill it, let it settle. You got to get all those little air bubbles out. And if you look down inside here, you'll have a steady stream of antifreeze coming back when it's bled right. You don't get it bled all the way. The first time you drive it, it will overheat. Got to keep running a little bit, turn it off, run a little bit, turn it off until it gets all bled out. So we got it all put together, all bled out. Not that bad of a job. Be sure to subscribe. I got other videos, how to put dual exhaust on your 5 Series. I'm also, when it gets warmer, I'm going to be doing the timing chain guides on here. Again, it's something that sounds overwhelming, but with a little bit of instructions, it's not too hard to do. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.